And welcome back to the afternoon session of the day one of the 2023 ISU Katy School of Insurance CPCU Spring Symposium, The Rise of Resilience. I'm committee co-chair Craig Bertsche, and we're so glad to have all of you coming back. We had a great morning of great information for our first 2 hours. And I think we've got another great discussion lined up here just ahead. And then later on this afternoon, Jim Jones will be joining us again to talk with the students a little bit about innovation, have a nice innovation discussion. But, we heard it mentioned in the first session, and it's amazing to think that 3 years ago, our world was changed by COVID, and especially with the symposium. We were planning on having the symposium up at the Uptown Marriott in Uptown Normal, Illinois, and unfortunately, we had to scrap that and just go dark for a year, and then returning in a hybrid sort of fashion in 2021. And you think of all the major adjustments we had to make, working from home, wearing masks, getting tested, being shut off from physical contact from loved ones, friends, and coworkers. But as you might expect, the insurance industry has certainly adapted, and nowhere was that more evident than the work insurance agents and brokers did to relationally connect with policyholders and prospects. The innovations we discuss in our symposium help agents and brokers better understand the needs of customers to make the connections more personal, to develop those relationships and meet customer needs. And many of our attendees reside more in the insurance operations and technology portion of the industry. So we thought we should spotlight the work that our agents and brokers and their teams have done, the challenges they've faced, and the bounce back from COVID, and help you better understand that agency perspective. So we've assembled a panel of 3 women who work as or with agents or brokers to talk about the challenges of innovation and technology, the never-ending quest to retain and find quality employees. So, as I introduce each member of the panel, we'll use some polling questions to see how well you know our panelists. I thought this would kind of be a fun way to do things, and I don't know that you may know them at all, but this will certainly provide some insight into who our panelists are and what they bring outside of work, perhaps. So our first polling question: this panelist prefers adventurous activities like hiking, snorkeling, ziplining, and bungee jumping. So we'll ask you to select your answer there in the poll. We'll let that go for a few moments and see how we're going along. Boy, it's kind of even. And I imagine, judging from the faces of our panelists, some are like, boy, they are way off. That is not my personality at all. So let's get some more people in here. I want to see if we can get it to half participating. So feel free to hop in and participate in this quick polling question. And I get it. You'll be able to deduce as we go along here, but I certainly want to give you the chance. All right, we'll go ahead and close out the poll. Our survey says Eryn Lloyd. I don't know. What do we think? Usually with polling questions, you have a correct answer, and the correct answer is Denise Brown. So Eryn, we'll get back to you here in a moment, but I don't know why people think that. I guess there must be a lot of country folks on here. Denise, a little background on Denise. She is the Vice President and Executive Claims Consultant for Interwest Insurance Services. She has 35 plus years of experience in the insurance industry. And I guess this is how much, she can attest to innovation and technology as much as anyone, because when she started 35 plus years ago in the insurance industry, she was a policy typist. I'm pretty sure that position doesn't exist anywhere anymore. She held a variety of claim-focused positions that has positioned her to help Interwest clients. She's a member of the Institute's CPCU Society, and she serves on the Board of Ethical Inquiry and the Into Risk Committee. And she lives in Pilot Hill, California with her husband, and they have 2 adult children. So welcome, Denise. Glad to have you on board here. Were you surprised that you were not selected there in the polling question?
I think maybe my age kind of deceives people because I haven't slowed down. I still like to do adventurous things.
Well, that's awesome. Well, you work in the insurance industry, and no doubt that is adventurous too. So,
Absolutely.
all right. Well, let's get to our second polling question here. All right. So we shared out the results on that one. You want to pull up the second polling question there, Sandy? Let's see if that'll work. I'm not seeing it, but I'm sure it'll pop up here in a moment.
It is on the screen. This
It
panelist
is.
has a bachelor's degree.
I closed it out too soon. Okay, so this panelist has a bachelor's degree in apparel merchandising and design. So is it Eryn? We probably know it's not Denise, so I'm expecting 0 votes for her. Or maybe it is. We don't know. Or Michele Schrotter. And for whatever reason, Sandy, I can't see the poll now because I think I cleared it out, unfortunately. So
you could just click on the poll
button.
I
did it. Okay.
There you go. Mm-hmm.
Great.
All right, we got to our 50% this time.
Awesome. All right.
But here we go. This is what they say. More people say it's Michele than Eryn.
Michele, is that you? No, it's Eryn. So Eryn, we thought she was a daredevil. No, she is. She has a fashion background. Eryn Lloyd is currently the manager of agency recruiting at Country Financial, where she leads agency recruiting and community development teams who are responsible for recruiting top talent for agent career opportunities. So prior to her current role, she was in Country's marketing division. So that involved field marketing, she did some corporate events, field marketing consultants. She worked with them, worked with field support, corporate social responsibility, and community development. And like me, she is also an alumnus of Illinois State University, but she did not major in insurance. She was not a product of the Katie School. Instead, the apparel merchandising and design, which ISU also has an excellent program for too. So that's fantastic. And so she's also a Bloomington Normal native, and Eryn's family has owned and operated a local business for the last 30 years here in Bloomington Normal, and she's been involved for 23. So how does that work when you're 7 and you get involved in the family business?
Well, thanks, Craig. I'm a little older than
Oh, okay.
Take that as a compliment. Yes. Been married for 23 years. It's my husband's business, and that's where I come in. 23 years.
So yep. That's the other job that you have in addition to also being a mom and a wife as well. So glad to have you on board here. So now our last polling question. This one, I hope, is easier if you were paying attention. This panelist just completed the Disney 10K in Orlando this past weekend. Eryn, Denise, or Michele? And the good news is we know Michele survived. She is unharmed, although she's sitting, so I can't tell. Maybe she's got her legs all wrapped and iced, but she looks like she's in phenomenal shape. So it looks like she made it through okay. How warm was it during the 10K, Michele?
It was very humid and very warm and very crowded. I think there were like 35,000 people running it with me. So it was I was not alone at all. It was fun, and I would do it again in a minute.
That's awesome. Well, good for you. Good for you. Let's give a little background here on Michele. She is the agency risk manager for the Bouchard region of Marsh & McClellan Agency. She manages E&O claims, oversees liability claims, analyzes and maintains risk data, handles contracts and legal matters. And if that's not enough, she also develops continuing education classes. So she serves on Marsh & McClellan Agency's National Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council and Learning and Development Council. And she also has what I call the alphabet soup. She has a myriad of designations. So obviously, professional development is very important to her, like it is to also our other panelists, but also ourselves too. She holds her certified risk manager, associate in insurance services, and numerous other designations, including the National Diversity Council certified diversity professional designation. And it's last night we had a little mixer with the Katie School of Insurance students at Illinois State University. And the table I was sitting at, one of the students asked, how soon before I start pursuing my CPCU designation when I get out of school and into the professional world. And both myself and another gentleman from Country Financial are just like, start it as soon as you're able, because those study habits leave you really, really fast. So, and I know from personal experience, I think I started my CPCU work about 10 years after I had graduated from Illinois State University. And boy, getting those study habits back was a struggle for a long, long time. So I'm sure, Michele, that's something you could certainly reiterate as well.
Start in school if you can. I believe you can get 2 done if you're an RMI. So do that if you can and come out with 2.
So one thing we'll remind you about, we'll be monitoring chat for any questions. Feel free to hop in. We'll certainly encourage those for you. But one thing I as we get into our discussion here, first off, and Eryn's background certainly brought this to light. When you graduated from college and started to enter the professional world, maybe some of you, there are a lot of us who did go into the insurance industry right away. But when you were in high school or college, did you grow up thinking you were going to be in the insurance industry? Eryn, we'll start with you.
Well, absolutely not. And, based on my major apparel merchandising and design, that's where I thought, my career path would take me. And so, I did that for a little bit in the retail management space and had some sales roles in another industry, waste removal and recycling, that I never thought I would be involved in either. And really, I started in the insurance industry, what I'll say, later in my career. And I will tell you, growing up in the Bloomington Normal area, where we have 2, large insurance companies that are headquartered here, had family members that still work, for Country Financial specifically, and grew up with a dad who was in the insurance space as well. So it's always been around me. I think, here in the Bloomington Normal area, several of us that live around here work for, one of the insurance giants in this town. So that's kind of what led me. I started as a corporate events on the corporate events team here at Country, and then, have made a few, moves here, and here I am still. So
Denise, how about you?
There we go. Sorry about that.
That's right.
So as you know, I've been in the industry for quite some time now, and I actually answered an ad in the newspaper. It was just on the job search, answered an ad in the newspaper for a policy typist. I went in and I interviewed. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I had no idea, but I went in and interviewed. I did not get selected. The person who got selected showed up for 1 week and then quit showing up. So they called me back, and I got hired, and it's been great. It was like the best thing that's ever happened to me. And I can say that I have been gainfully employed in the insurance industry with zero disruption since that day.
And, obviously, Denise, this makes an excellent point that for those students of the Katie School, what you may enter into the insurance industry certainly is not it. That's not where you will be limited to for the rest of your career. There is a broad array of roles and responsibilities outside of whether it's a policy typist or a claims analyst or representative, whatever. It's just, it can take you on a path you never would have imagined.
Yeah, even more so now than ever before, with IT and HR, all of those components that are just another piece of the whole picture that a lot of times aren't thought about.
Michele, how about you? Are you doing what you wanted to do when you were growing up?
No, I love what I'm doing now. My father was in insurance, so of course I didn't want to do that when I was young, and realized how wonderful it was. I started my career on the carrier side in Ohio, where I'm from. And when I moved to Florida, not a lot of carriers where I am. Then I went to the agency side and loved it. So I've been here pretty much since I got to Florida. And I think this is one of the most amazing sides of the business, because we get to interact with customers and actually help them more so than maybe underwriters and claims people certainly do. But you're actually solving problems and putting the pieces together of the whole coverage all the time. So yeah, I have the best job in the world now, but certainly not what I thought when I was young.
And I think what gets to the core of it, and I know Eryn, I know you're not an agent per se, but you deal with a lot of agents on a regular basis, and you have those, you're looking for certain characteristics. But I wonder, it sounds like you all have, and I think that's true of many of us in the insurance industry, a servant heart where you're looking to help people. And that's very gratifying to you. I know I feel that way, even though I work in agency at State Farm. I'm not an agent. I'm working to help agents do their jobs better. But you know, when you know you've made that connection, or when you've broken through on something that's helped somebody do their job just a little bit better, or get a customer to come on board with you, what a great feeling that is. All right. Let's go to our next polling question here as we really dig into our discussion here. From an innovation technology perspective, what is the biggest challenge agents face in their offices? And we have really tough options here. And I don't know that there's really a right answer. I think it depends on who you speak with. So I'll be curious to see how the audience's answers come through, as well as what our panelists have to say. So when we get to that 50% mark, we'll see where we're at. And right now it's looking like multiple platforms is a big one. And multiple platforms, a lot of people think of it maybe from an independent agent type perspective, where they're representing multiple companies, but boy, it plays true at State Farm, at Country as well, where there are multiple platforms. And that's the clear winner by a wide margin. 60% continuous updates. That's also a big one. Platform design further down the road, and then outages at 2%. And I threw outages in there because Denise brought this into my mind, because she has to deal with this where she's at in California. We don't typically have to deal with this in Illinois, but Denise, those rolling power outages that you have to deal with occasionally, or maybe there's a wildfire because you're up more in Northern California in a lot of heavily forested area. I imagine that becomes a challenge for you at Inner West.
Yeah, it really does. Over the past, 5 or so years, we've had, well, 5 or so, we've had drought conditions that have been just terrible. And so the rolling outages are done to accomplish a couple of things. Initially it was, too much pull from the grid, right? Because everybody's running their air conditioners. It's in the 90s to hundreds, for hours upon hours. But then I don't know if everybody knows about the fires and the PG&E issue. PG&E, whenever it's windy now, they pull the power down. So, and when you're working from home, a lot of us working from home, that's been very frustrating. Yeah, just frustrating, because we're all connected now, and if we're not connected, we can't do business.
And here we're talking a lot about power outages, but Sandy mentions in the chat also internet outage too. And I think for those of us, especially during COVID, that was a big concern too, was would my community's main internet provider have the bandwidth to handle the increased load? And that was a big concern here in Bloomington Normal with Country and State Farm. Moving home, would some of the major internet providers be able to handle the load? They did. We were maybe a little surprised, but it also maybe showed some of the warts of some of the internet providers as well, and forced people to switch. Michele, how about from your perspective outside of the outages there? I know that's not as big of an issue down where you are, but what do you see in your work at Marsh McLennan?
So we are part of Marsh McLennan agency. So we call it MGTI. So our technology is huge, corporate, global, which is good. But what we really struggle with, I think, is having consistent workflows where everyone is doing things in a consistent manner. It's very hard to train people to do a process if the person they're working behind hasn't done it that way. Nothing is the way it should be. and it, where things are filed, can we find things again? What are we calling it? So we also don't want people to be only working in the system. We want the system to be a tool to help them, and they actually can do the practice of insurance and actually serve clients and help clients. But we do want the system to be correct. So there's that balance. Like, is technology, we want it to help us, not us be beholden to it. And that's all we do is update the system. So that's a struggle we face.
So our ET folks that are in the call now, well, I imagine that's a fairly consistent feedback that they get with regards to the work they're doing on a day-to-day basis. I know agents seem to like everything in one spot that they can access to it. So when they're talking to a customer, you kind of have to think about your credibility's at stake in a way. And the customer has chosen you as an agent because they value that relationship. But if there's a book of business with, maybe a couple of thousand households, you're not going to know everybody on an individual in-depth basis, but this helps bridge that gap and you can access that information quickly. But when it's all over the place, it's a bigger challenge. Eryn, how about, what do you hear from agents at Country? I imagine all of those, power outages, probably not so much, except for maybe your subsidiary up in Oregon, perhaps, but or down in Arizona. What do you hear from agents?
I think we're no different than any in the industry or, really at any corporate organization is, we have the legacy systems, right? And as we all look to modernize our systems and we bring new systems on, we still have to maintain usage of the legacy. We're learning, the agents are learning new systems, and there's multiple systems they have to utilize to run their daily business. And so really that can be a challenge. I would say, and I think too, I'll just say, I think even generationally, and I'll use myself as an example, is some of us, my generation, and I would say even some of the older generations, we are not as tech savvy, right? I tell my kids all the time, I did not have a cell phone in college. We did not have cell phones in college. I had the emergency bag phone in the car, right? So we didn't grow up with, having that at our fingertips. And so I think that is challenging, to some of the agents as well, especially as we bring in new fancy technology, just learning how they use that most effectively to run their business, does pose a challenge still.
It's interesting. The last in-person symposium that we had was back in 2019, and we had the then new CEO of Country Financial, Jim Jacobs, come and speak. And Jim said one of the biggest challenges Country faces is updating these legacy platforms, that some of which were developed in the 1960s and they're still in use. And I imagine Denise and Michele, you're probably dealing with that same issue, that there are some legacy systems that still serve the companies well, even though it's, technology is involved. It's just sometimes you're trying to manage maybe that independent contractor agreement that a lot of agents may have with their, if they're a captive insurer, or just the insuring agreements that agents and brokers may have with the companies they represent. So it's interesting that 4 years later, it's still an ongoing issue, not only for Country, but for other, State Farm, other organizations as well. It's just a hard problem to solve, and you can't just do it at the snap of a finger. That's for sure. All right. So I imagine retaining talent, attracting talent is a big challenge every day. And, some days you probably worry about certain employees within an agent's office coming in saying, hey, I've been offered a job elsewhere. What are you going to do to keep me here? So you mentioned, we've talked about these legacy platforms, the generational gaps. For Denise and Michele, especially, how are you making your agency, more attractive to the next generation? And how would you define attractive, I guess, is the first thing.
Who do you want to go first?
Michele, if you want to go first, go ahead. Yeah.
Sure. So I guess attractive would be great culture, flexibility, camaraderie, all of that. And we have 2 early career programs, one for salespeople and one for service people. And we bring people in who either just graduated from college or maybe have sales experience in another industry. People know nothing about insurance. We can teach the insurance. So we do spend a lot of time selecting candidates that fit certain profiles that they will fit in our culture. We want people who have the servant heart and who want to work hard and who care about the world. And we have some core values, like be happy is one of them. We want to work with people who are happy. So we try to have our culture be the most important thing, because insurance, there's a million ways to teach that. We can make that happen. But I think it's important that we have a structured training program so people can come in, they know what they're going to be doing for the first 9 months or so. And then we expect them, at least on the service side, to not stay there. You come in like 12 to 18 months, you should have a different job and you can pick where you want it to be. There's always openings. So I think the fact that we expect you to be promoted, we expect you to move up and on is good. And there are competitors who target our people. Like they get offered all the time and money that is just crazy money, but we're still just going to do it. It's our goal. We have a movers and shakers slide. Every quarter we do our numbers, and everyone who's promoted and moves up, and the numbers are phenomenal. And one of our core pillars is we want to be the organization that basically trains the future insurance people in our area. Like we want to be the ones who are doing that. So, and our competitors know we do that and they like to take our people, but hopefully they stay for us, for the culture.
Denise?
Yeah, so like Michele says, the training is you have to have a good training program so that you bring good people on board and they have the tools that they need to do to carry out the mission of the organization. We have a very active internship program. We work with the state colleges and the community colleges, and most of those kids, I'll call them young adults, many of them
And I think we just lost Denise.
We lost Denise. She'll be back.
Yeah, she's out there in more of a remote area. So, sometimes the connectivity is good, sometimes not so good, but we'll get her back on. Eryn, from your perspective, what do you hear from country agents?
So, I would say, speaking, from the country agents and staff, I think a lot of it is what we heard Michele and Denise touching on. And there's Denise. Really that culture, the training, you know what I mean? What is the office? What's happening? Is it a fun place to work, right? When you think of the agent's staff. Now I have other commentary towards the agent career. So when you're ready for that, Craig, you let me know and I'll touch on that too.
Certainly. But I think with staff too, and it was interesting. Last week I was talking to an agent from the Dallas Metro, just outside of the Dallas Metroplex area. So you have a lot of tech companies down there. And I was asking him about hiring agent team members for his office. And he said for a while, it was crazy. The market was really, really tight, and you had to increase pay for a team member, and you're paying them more than you ever thought you would pay a team member, just base before you're getting into the commissions and all that. But he said, fortunately, use that in air quotes there, but with some of the tech layoffs that were happening with like Dell and Google and some of those major employers like that, that's bringing that back down now. They have a wider pool of candidates to draw from instead of going to people who are currently employed and trying to bring them into their office. Now you've got people starting to bang on their door wanting to come work for them. So it's amazing how quickly that tide can turn, because just 2 years ago, boy, it seemed like the applicants were kind of controlling things. Now all of a sudden it's flipped as employment continues to seem to, depending on the sector that you're in.
If I could just add now that I'm back, sorry about that.
Yeah, no problem.
Good pay. I mean, if we're hiring good people, we need to pay them well. I know our office, responding to our staff, we have a strong community focus. Interwest gives back. The employees actually nominate nonprofits that they do donation drives for. And then also our agency has a path to ownership. So certain qualifications, you can actually become an owner of the agency. And we think those things lend to, part of the great work environment.
Certainly. Are you seeing, and maybe that's not so much of a space, but I think last night, just hearing feedback from some of the students in our student mixer about social engagement, involvement, and the community issues. I guess I would imagine as agents, you have to be extremely careful with what space you play in and knowing your audience. And it's an even bigger challenge for corporations that may have a broad swath across the country as opposed to just my own general area that my office may be in. Michele?
Yeah, I think it's important that the community definitely, but this is funny. Last year, we have a diversity, equity, inclusion council here in our region. We have a national one. And last year we wanted to do the St. Petersburg Pride Parade, and not the parade itself. There's like a family carnival the next day. And so we were very excited, and our CEO asked us, like, so tell me more about this. I just wanted to make sure, because the parade itself has a reputation of being kind of wild and crazy. So when we explain, like, we're not in the parade, we're at the family function the next day, all for it. But I do understand what you mean. We don't want to represent or align ourselves with organizations or things that may not be appropriate. But I think also it's important that we are open, and we wouldn't do something that is negative, but it's okay to, like, homeless shelters. There might be people there that you wouldn't hire or invite to dinner, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't care for those people. So there's the whole social thing is very, very important. One of ours is the community focus. So I agree with that.
And Denise, I know out there, you're in California, but people forget California is a massive state, and where you are may not quite be like San Francisco or Los Angeles. Talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, so I live in rural America. My population of my town is 750. So we commute to Sacramento, which is going to be much larger. I mean, so there are a lot of cultural differences, and you might, like, we have a huge ag industry, right? So you've got cultural differences there. So it just depends on what region you're in. And there's going to be a different type of focus all the way down. I mean, Southern California is completely different from Northern California. So, you know, our offices are kind of spread out in Northern California. So they all have their own specialties, right? The producers have their own specialties based somewhat on geography, and some of it based on their own talents that they bring to the table.
And do you find that being in the more rural area, it's harder to draw in talent, or you're established well enough now?
I'm a remote.
You're remote.
Yeah,
but
I mean, yeah, no, and I think that's one thing that COVID really brought to light, is that you don't need to limit your talent pool to your local community per se, right? I mean, you can draw talent from many areas and make it work for both sides.
Good point. Eryn, I know with country and being throughout the United States, I would imagine what may work in one area, one state, one county in one state may not work in another. And some agents say, we want to do this, and some agents say, if you do that, we're going to be pitching a fit or something. So how does country handle, you know, a diverse base like that?
Yeah, I mean, you know, remember, our agents, they're small business owners, right? So, I mean, they are in business for themselves. And so depending on where they are geographically, depending on their market area, really they can kind of select what they want to support within the community, right? I mean, we really try hard. You know, my team, again, we are recruiting new agents to come into the role. We don't recruit their staff, because our agents are responsible for recruiting their own staff, right? But really, our goal is to mirror the communities in which we live and work, and continue to diversify our sales workforce so that we do mirror the communities in which we live and work. So yeah, we have agents all over that are involved in things that they're passionate about, you know, in their local communities. And we do provide some corporate support, you know, for them to get involved and really build their local brand there, to help them, you know, and support and build their business.
But typically,
so, yeah, it varies.
Do you find typically corporate just, you know, is not going to dictate, no, you can't participate in that? No, it's you know your market best, and what you have
Yes.
to do.
I would say we do have some guidelines around how they can spend, some of our we have some co-op programs, right? We typically, like all, try to stay away from things that may be controversial, right? Political in nature, things like that. But in general, they do have the ability to select what they want to be involved with around, specific guidelines again, especially, when they're using our corporate dollars to help them.
I would
support.
suppose, and this is to all of you, I guess, Denise, maybe we start with you, the due diligence of what you're going to get involved with is critical, that you
Well,
might have to dig a little deeper than just taking somebody at face value on what they're telling you.
yeah, definitely so. I mean, there is some due diligence, and we have a mission, a vision, we have goals, we have procedures, we have policies in place. So I think those are our guides, right? And if we're abiding by what those overall rules are, there's typically not an issue. I think for us, when the internet and all the social media platforms became open and available, it was kind of like, okay, we got to reel these producers in, right? Because they were just all out there, and you have to have some control or some parameters on what they're putting out there. And there was a learning curve on that, and there are some that are a little more adventurous than others that you really have to pull in. But once there's a good understanding of what the company culture is, what the personnel handbook says are the do's and don'ts, you're good to go. It's different, at least from my perspective. It's different than the carrier side, where you have corporate legal that everything has to be approved through. It's never been that way where I sit at my desk.
It's interesting. I keep hearing culture, and you as a remote employee, Denise, how have you adjusted to the culture being remote from maybe, say, where your other coworkers are in an office? And I mean, maybe you had the experience of being in an office for a while before going to your current place where you're working now, but
Yeah.
is it harder to instill that sense of culture? I think we're gonna lose her here, I think. Michele, I'll hop to you here, and we'll see if her.
It can be hard. I know.
Oh.
So I started working from home back in the early 2000s.
Okay. All right, Michele, why don't you hop in here? You're more in an office, but you probably have some remote coworkers as well. The
We do.
culture and including them in that culture, the team members, the other employees that are there that may be working out remotely. How do you do that?
It's a struggle. So before, anyone who was fully remote, it was rare, and it was special, like people actually moved away or they had a special reason. Of course, COVID changed all of that. So now we find a lot of people didn't want to come back to the office, but we love to be together. So we have managers who we're trying to get people to come back, and some people don't want to, and that's a shame, but we feel that everyone is happier. And the first couple months, I felt like I got very little done because everyone's just wants to chat and catch up. Like, we haven't seen you in 2 years. Like, what are you doing? How's it going? But I think there's definitely hybrid. So thank goodness for Zoom and for Teams, because we can reach people multiple ways and faster, and we can collaborate and share and all this wonderful stuff. So technology has made that better. But there's no substitute for in-person, live, face-to-face. That definitely is hands down the very best thing.
Eryn, I know with agents, it's kind of up to them how they want to do it, but I would imagine even during COVID, a lot of them remained open and their employees were coming into the office to assist, but there were probably some, now they know they can do this remotely. So if somebody needs to stay home for a day, for maybe they're not feeling well, don't want to come in to expose somebody, they can still work remotely and get the job done. But the culture of an agent office, I would imagine that's even maybe it's not as tricky to navigate because it's a smaller group of people, perhaps.
Yeah, it is a smaller group of people. And I think too, I think in the agent offices, they don't have as much of the virtual flexibility, right? Because, and again, COVID changed the world, right? And we had to think about doing business in a different way. But typically your agent, and even today, they are in their offices, right? They are there serving the local community. People are bopping in. They've had to adjust over time. And yes, they can, team members can work from home if they're ill. We can get the job done. You don't have to be necessarily in the office, but also the agent staff does need to be in the office for when clients come in and the agent's out on appointments. So it truly is different than more of the corporate environment, that Michele was speaking a little more to. It is just a different dynamic when you're out in that insurance agent role and you've got, the staff in your office.
Yeah, it's amazing. And I think what resonates here is it's not just connecting with customers, but connecting with the employees as well. And I think I see this a lot where people like working at home because they can get so much stuff done. But at the same time, that personal connection is critical in your day-to-day operations, not only from an insurance agent's office or a brokerage, but also a corporation or a corporate type setting. So we do want to remind you that we do have chat open. If you'd like to ask questions, feel free to pop those in. I know, Frankie, you're over there at ISU. If you have students that want to hop in with questions, please let me know, and we'll be able to get them on and ask questions. And I know for some of the students, I've seen a lot of students use starting off at an insurance agent's office as their entry point. Maybe they're not sure if they want to go into the industry or not. So maybe one summer in high school, they'll go work in an office, or even in college, maybe that'll be a part-time job. Michele, is that something you see fairly often down at Marsh McLellan?
Yes, especially on our service platform is called SST, the support specialist team, and they come in and they get licensed and they learn, they do like some processing, checking policies, endorsements, things like that. Learning, do I like personal lines or commercial lines or benefits? Where do I want to go? And some have gone into HR or IT, just all over the whole gamut. And also we're fortunate we have corporate roles as well for our bigger company. But I think it's good to get your feet wet and just get in the industry somewhere, because there's something for everybody. No matter what your passions are and your skills are, there's a role for you in our industry that will make you happy and will bring joy to your life. There's so many things we do. If you think about it, insurance touches every aspect of society, and it affects every single person and every single business. And people who are in our industry can participate in that. So there is definitely should get in, meet people, get your CPCU designation. Like right now, the Institute is offering the free reinsurance course this quarter. There's a free course every quarter. And I signed up for that because that fascinates me. I have no idea how that even works, and I can't wait to do that class. But there's always learning. And so that's part of just being a person, is if you're always learning something, then that's good for you. And our industry has that. Like, things are always changing. So whether you're answering the phones or you're a policy typist, whatever that's called now, do it. Get in, get somewhere, and meet insurance people and find your home here, wherever it is in our big universe. That's my advice.
And Eryn, I would imagine, since you're in agency recruiting, when you see somebody who maybe worked a few years or, coming right out of college, but they had that experience in whether it was country or State Farm or Farmers, whatever, as an agent team member, that probably helps them. At least the shock, maybe there's not quite as big of a shock of what all is entailed with an agent's office.
Oh, that's exactly right. And what Michele said, it does allow them to dip their toe in the water, right? I mean, and they see all of the different aspects that happen within an agent office, right? There's marketing, there's the service work, and obviously the sales, but the relationships with the clients. And they see the hard work, that these agents are putting in, because we're 1099, we don't have a salary, right? And so, it does allow them to think about, hey, like, this is something for me, or no, it's not. And for us, we love it because they really know and understand, what the insurance agent career is. And it really does create that pipeline for future, insurance agents and financial advisors. So yeah, it's great. And I would just say to reiterate what Michele said, the industry in general, insurance, I started in marketing. I didn't start in sales, underwriting, so there is a spot for everybody, in this industry in so many different departments and roles. And it really, even though you don't think insurance can be exciting, it really is exciting. And for our agents, if they do their jobs really well, they're making a profound impact in people's lives, and in the communities in which they live and work. So it's a great industry and it's a great career path.
And Frankie, I'll get to you here in a moment. Denise, I'll give you a chance to chime in here as well. But in your role, do you see some team members that help out? They just come in looking for a little part-time job on the side of their schooling to help maybe earn a little spending money and determine if they want to pursue this path of going into the insurance industry?
Yeah, absolutely. That ties into our internship program. So we do have, and I think it's a 3-month program, so they can come in and dip their toes and see what it's like at an insurance agency and whether or not they like it. And it's telling me my connection is unstable again. This is crazy. But yeah, it gives them an opportunity. And like I said, most get hired, but not all want.
Yeah.
Not all end up wanting to accept a position.
We may ask,
but most of them have stayed on, and it's a good job. If you go ahead.
Well, I was going to say you might want to shut off your video. That way the audio might be better. Like a good tip there from Debbie. There we go. See if that helps. I should have offered that to you. It's helping some, but let's go to the question here that we have. Frankie, do you want to go ahead and ask that, or whomever in the room pose that question?
Yeah, so company culture got brought up, and us as students, we feel that a lot of companies that come to visit, come speak with us, mention that their culture is so amazing, so great. How do you show prospective employees or students how great your culture is, since every company says that theirs is great?
Well, we have social media people who show the pictures, but just come here, come into our office and you'll feel it, right? So when we're all together, there's a vibe in this office. When the parking lot's full, it's going to be a good day in the office. There's a lot of people here. So usually it's Wednesdays and Thursdays are the best days here. But we have we just had a 5K by the Bay. I missed it because I was running the Disney one, but we do 5Ks. Halloween, we go crazy. All the teams decorate everywhere. Right now we're doing some donations, some work for a local homeless shelter. There's always team meetings and outings, and I don't know, you just have to come talk to us and talk to specific teams about all the things they're doing. We like to be with each other, and we love our common mission of helping each other and our clients and our communities. And that's the order. We want to help each other, our clients, and our communities. We want everyone to be the best them that they can be. And we aspire to that. Everyone be comfortable and challenge yourself. And that's, if everyone is doing that, the culture is going to be great, because everyone's kind of rowing in the same direction.
Yeah, that's good. That's good philosophy. And Denise mentioned in chat, go visit the office and talk to the staff.
Mm-hmm.
Eryn, how about you? What do you, I imagine that's probably a similar advice you're giving to candidates too.
Yeah, for sure. We can talk about, our culture, and I think that's a great question, Frankie. We can talk about the culture, and we've got, what we think is a great one. But I think going into the agent office, right? Or if you are, wanting to become an agent, right? Even talking to other folks that are in the career today, right? We have a corporate office. We've been around nearly 100 years, right? That backs our agents out in the field. But interacting with others that are in the career, they can show you that versus, we're going to talk about it all day, how great our culture is, because we truly think it is. But I think you have to interact with other people in the role, in the offices, depending on what the role is that you're interested in.
All right. Let's get to our last polling question here. What is the most specific trait or skill that insurance agents look for in potential employees? And I bet you could get a different answer from, you know, you could ask 4 different agents and they give you 4 different answers, and there are probably others that we missed on this one, but we'll see what kind of responses we get here. But I think we're getting maybe a pretty clear direction here, what most people think. And I'm guessing a lot of people deal with insurance agents or their team members on a regular basis. And going back to our prior conversation, Eryn Selberg, great comment last night as well about making sure you study for you just start CPCU right away. But he also said you could always request to have a one-on-one conversation with a senior staff member as part of that interview process as well. It's a great way to better understand the culture. That's a great point. All right, we'll close out the poll. And it looks like problem solver is the winner. So Denise, feel free to type in chat what your thinking was. And Michele, would you agree with that? Or
I think problem solving is important, but I think before that, the things I think are most important, ability to learn. You need to be able to absorb information, learn it, and then apply it. And also being coachable. If you're not able to accept feedback and maybe change direction, you're never going to improve and never get better. So being able to learn and being coachable are 2 of the key things. I think no matter what your career is, those are 2 important things.
Yeah. Eryn, what do you hear from agents at Country?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. And I think the ability to communicate, outgoing, right? Because you're on the phone a lot of times with these clients that we're taking care of, right? And sometimes it's in their greatest time of need. So that compassion, empathy, those are all skills that they're looking for, you know, for the staff in their offices. Empathy, yeah.
Good listening skills. Denise said it. I would agree. The communication skills, it gets talked about a lot, but to me, I think it's used kind of vaguely, that it can mean different things to different people. And I know in my line of work, what I deal with an agent experience at State Farm, my team oversees some of the knowledge portals that agents use. And we know that if you can't communicate the message properly, you're not going to be successful in that project succeeding, so to speak. Or agents are just going to pick up the phone and call, or agent team members are going to pick up the phone and call underwriting or whatever to get a clear understanding of what it's about. And so my advice to, you know, my years of State Farm working with interns and younger people, if you're still in college, take as many writing courses as you can, speaking courses, just communication skills. You have to get those down. Because I'm 52 years old and I'm cleaning up grammar from people who are older than me, sometimes who have college degrees, but yet you're putting grammar mistakes and things like that in knowledge content that you're expecting agents and agent team members to use, and not understanding that you can make things very concise and easy to consume. And if you can't get that right, you know, your training is going to be out the door, because if they can't consume it quickly and develop an understanding of it, you're just going to be repeating and revisiting it constantly. Yeah, Sandy makes a good comment here. And, you know, Denise mentioned writing skills have changed with technology. Exactly. Yes. You know, the Twitter, that's probably a Twitter or Snapchat where you don't have as many characters to use. So you got to be more brief and concise and to the point. But also curiosity. Yes, that's a great personality tribute, because I imagine as agents, if you're not asking the right questions, you have to listen, because there may be questions you're not asking that are getting answered as far as identifying a customer's needs. And that's a potential product that you could fill that need with. And if you're missing that, and that customer finds out they needed that product and you didn't offer it to them, guess what? You're probably losing that customer. Yep. Good points there. Good points. All right. And, you know, talking about customers, and we've talked about technology, but we've seen, and I think Michele, Denise, in your time in insurance, you've seen customers evolve where they've become much more savvy technologically, and that's helped them maybe get a better understanding of certain types of insurance policies, and maybe they're a more knowledgeable consumer. But what are the biggest challenges for an office to deal with customers who become more reliant on technology, especially when you're in the relationship business in a way? Michele, what would you say to that?
So a lot of clients want to communicate via text messages, which I understand how convenient that is, but as a risk manager, I don't like that idea at all. I want a full conversation, like a yes or a no, like, do you want to buy the million or the 3? And they say yes. Well, which one, right? So I don't like that. I do know that text messages, some agency management systems can accept them as documents in the system, which is good. We through DocuSign and Indio, we've automated a lot of the collection process. So instead of having to print a PDF and sign it and scan it back in, they can just click on their phone. So that's helped a lot get things done actually faster. But I think we need to be, my CEO likes to say, on the cutting edge, but not the bleeding edge of technology, right? We don't need to have the best and fastest of everything, but we need to be very, very good. And I think just trying to be there is our struggle. But a lot of people are especially younger personal lines clients, are much more adept at technology than we are. So we're trying to satisfy them as well.
Eryn, I would imagine country agents are adjusting pretty well to that, though. They know they've got to be on board with that.
They are, yes. And I mean, I would go back to what you said, though. It remains a challenge because we are a relationship-based business. We start the relationship, we build the relationship, we maintain the relationship, right? In person. Now, again, COVID changed the world, right? And we had to adapt. And the good thing for us is we do have tools in place, to help our clients. We've got an app, the texting, like Michele mentioned, that is key, but again, what we struggle with probably the most is that it's harder to communicate your value, to truly talk about the products and services, what they are, the coverages, right? You can't, it's harder to do that through texting. And like Michele said, as a risk manager, it's like, it's scary, but we do have some things in place, even after COVID virtual meetings, right? So we don't have to have that in-person interaction, but hopping on a virtual meeting where you can still have that conversation face-to-face or hopping on the phone. And so, again, we are modernizing and the agents are getting more used to that, but we still, I think, probably prefer that in-person relationship, but have tools in place to help our clients and our agents.
Yeah. And I like Denise, I thought had made an interesting comment in chat. We need to be able to meet clients where they are. We have a client portal for clients to manage insurance, issue certificates, report claims, and risk management tools. But some clients prefer more technology and others prefer in-person or phone. And I would imagine for all of you, from your perspectives, sometimes that's the biggest challenge for somebody who's an agent or a broker, is just trying to remember which customer wants to be texted, which customer pretty much, if you're trying to text them and they want a phone call or they want you dropping by their office to visit with them, you better be following that or else they're going to be unhappy with you and think you don't care. And that's not what they want. It's just, I think some customers don't show as much grace maybe as they could, not really understanding the role. They just want to they expect that personal level of service.
Mm-hmm.
I love that meet clients where they are. That's absolutely right. You have to. Exactly. In this day, you have to understand what their preferences are and how they want to communicate.
All right. Last question here, is we have just about a minute, so quickly. Biggest learning from COVID for yourself and your office as we talk about resilience. Michele, how about you?
Well, the one thing I'm grateful for COVID is it sped up working from home. Like before it was just on an as needed basis, and now we realized we could do it. So that, I think we moved ahead 10 years in that 2.5-3 year process, which was good. It can happen. We also learned we love to be together. So on a corporate level, we can make it work, and it's okay if people need to be home sometimes. Hybrid is the way, but we really do value being together, and that's really the way we want to do it. On the personal side, I think a lot of the talk about mental health that happens now, is very, very good. And I'm glad that happened because it was stressful and there was anxiety, and I didn't realize what anxiety was, but it was okay because everybody had it, right? So I think people are more open now to talk about things like that. And I think it helped people feel better, maybe ultimately, that it's okay that it's not okay. And I think that was one thing about COVID that we all sort of just kind of bought into that. It's okay that it's not okay. I feel like it's better now. Like we made it through and that's good. But yeah, there were some good things, and those were the things. So.
Eryn, what did you hear from, and I know Denise echoes your comments, Michele. Eryn, quickly, how about you?
Yeah, I think, overall, we can effectively and efficiently do business in other ways than in person, right? Like we just really talked about that, doing things virtually. And sometimes it is more efficient. You're not driving to an office. You don't cancel because of weather. So while it took a little bit of time to adapt to that and adjust to doing business in a different way, I think that's been, the reps and the agents' biggest takeaway probably is that we can do business in other ways.
Well, we're certainly, I knew this would fly by, and it has. So thank you so much for your participation, your willingness to be a part of the Spring Symposium. We're glad to have you here, and a great, robust discussion. Eryn Lloyd from Country Financial, Denise Brown from Interwest, and then Michele Schrotter from McClellan, or Marsh. I'm messing it all up here.
Oh, good. MMA.
MMA. We thank you so much for your willingness to be involved with us this afternoon. Great learnings, and certainly we're appreciative of all you've done to help us out with our symposium here as we continue on here with day one. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks,
Craig.
Hey, Craig, this is Jim over at ISU with the students, and just want to remind people we will be taking a break, but the next session, the students will be asking the audience, what do you think about the industry, and what's their opinion on where the industry is going, and what jobs are going to be changing, what skills they're going to be needing. So if you could, everybody could come back at 1:35. We will have the students asking the audience questions about their careers, where they see this going.
Sounds good. We'll take a break. Be back at 1:35 for a good student discussion to close out our day. More coming up. Stick around.